Hey everybody, we are teaching Tilt Brush, and this time on Teaching Tilt Brush, we're going to create an entire jungle, or a forest, or an orchard, or any real woodland environment. We've done this before in our Tilting at Brushes, for example, creating an entire forest around the user, around the viewer. So let's see the tips and tricks and tools to pull that off so you can make your own jungle or forest environment. Now, I'm going to be doing the quick and dirty version. This is going to be about 20 minutes worth of jungle. The more time you spend, the deeper you want your jungle, the more detail you bring out, the richer and more interesting that jungle is going to be. So we're just going to give you the framework here and let you then play with it. Now we will be putting this up on poly.google.com as well, along with a lot of our other pieces, so that you can use this as a starting point if you like. Now, since I'm going to do this as an environment, I'm going to start fairly large, dinosaur size. I'm also using the night sky environment so that you guys can see my starting area, and there's a little bit of sky going on in the background. Now, some of this is going to use the power of a PC. So those of you using Quest or PlayStation, some of the larger tricks we're going to do here might slow you down a little bit, might really push the power of what the Quest can do. But we'll mention those as they come up. So for starters, I'm just going to get a few tree trunks around the starting area. I'm going to choose a nice dark brown, generic tree trunk brown, and I'm going to use the icing tool because that not only does it have a nice shape and size, but you can see it's got this light texture to it as well. So it's not just a smooth shape. Now, if you want straight trunks, like bamboo or a Norfolk pine type of thing, then you could use your straight edge to make sure those lines are straight. Since I'm going for a jungle where the tree trunks and branches are kind of twisty, I'm not going to bother with a straight edge. Now the trunks are going to be kind of big, so I'm going to shrink down the landscape and raise the size of my brush and just do a couple tree trunks coming from the ground up, and I'm going to be a little bit wavy about it so that my trunks are a little sort of organic and twisting jungle trunks as opposed to just straight trunks like an orchard of some kind. But you can make whatever tree trunks you want. Branches are going to be a little bit thinner. In this case, I'm not going to do too many, mostly because I don't want to freak out the lower end computers. If I'm on a really powerful PC and I'm willing to take the time, I could make this whole thing as complicated as I want. Feel free to change the size, change the way these things branch off. And again, I'm just going to keep it kind of simple to start with here. Okay, I've got some trees doing tree trunk kind of things. If I go back to normal scale, now I can look around, see how many trees, see how close they are, see how big they are, make sure they've got the feel of the forest that I'm looking for. If I need to, now I can go through and use the selection tool, grab one of these trees and reposition, or resize, or rotate if they're all going in the same direction, so that we can get a little more variety. So we can see I've got this nice little grove going. To make this a whole forest, I'm actually going to select all of it now. Some systems without a select all option, you can just go ahead and select all the pieces at once. But now that I've got it all selected, I'm going to duplicate. Second set of trunks, maybe a slightly different size. Make sure all of the bases of the trunks are touching the ground. Duplicate that one. Some more over here. Duplicate. Some more over here. Duplicate. Some more over here. Duplicate. Some more over here. I'm rotating them and changing the size a little bit so it's not the exact same trees each time. If you make them all the exact same size and heading in the same direction, people will see it a little more clearly that it's just the same trees over and over. But if you adjust them a little bit, you can get a lot more mileage out of a lot fewer trees. So now you can see just the tree trunks are starting to get a lot more character, a lot more depth to this forest. If I really wanted a deep forest, I could select everything again, duplicate again. Now I can really branch out here, so to speak. No pun intended. Well, pun a little bit intended. And again, move them around a little bit, change the size, spread it around, so no matter what direction I look in, there's going to be some more trees in that direction. So at normal size, now you can see I've got a lot of tree trunks going in a lot of directions. I only started with about 4 or 5, but the duplication lets me get a lot of trees very quickly. That's a good shell for my forest, sort of the skeleton of the trunks. I'm going to go back up to dinosaur size again. To do leaves, to do bushes, to do leaves off the trees, there's a few different brushes to do that. If I'm just doing a big clumpy kind of brush, clumpy kind of branch, I'm going to use the green leafy color and the splatter tool, because it gives me a lot of sort of random little circles in a little bit of a random order. So I'm going to increase the size, and I'm just going to go up to the camera so you can see it and paint a green blob. If I now grab a darker shade of green and do low areas, the darker shade of green reads as shadow. Now I'm going to do a brighter shade of green, a little bit smaller, just in a few places. Now my bushes are starting to take on some shape and some size, very quickly, very simply. Now I can copy these bushes. Selection tool, copy these bushes. Make sure we get all the green pieces. If you accidentally get a trunk, remember, you can then deselect, remove the trunk, and go back and make sure you just get the bushes you want. Now, if I'm going to do this a lot, I might even want to group them together. So I can come back and just click once and get the whole bush at one time. Or I can now duplicate that shrub, and now I'm going to put these bushes in a lot of different places as well. Making sure they're fairly close to the ground. Maybe I'll do several in one place to make a large area of bushes. I can again change their size, change their direction to add a little more variety so it's not quite as obvious that I'm using the same bush over and over and over again. Also, remember where your starting point is. So when I put these brushes in place, I'm thinking about what it's going to look like. So I'm just going to get a few of these bushes into place nice and quickly. Changing their size and orientation a little bit, maybe having more of them or fewer of them in one area. So that we can now see, normal size, these brushes are starting to fill in around the trees. I'm going to cheat and use the power of my PC, use my selection tool, go through and just get all these bushes I put in. That's a little tiny bush there. Now that I've grabbed all the shrubbery there is, where are you guys? There you are. Duplicate. More shrubbery. Shrubbery over here. Duplicate. Shrubbery over here. Duplicate. Shrubbery over here. So I can again very quickly and easily add a whole bunch. Let's get it where you guys can see it. I'm just going to go in and add a bunch of greenery down around the tree trunks. Feel free, again, as you do this on your own, vary the size, vary the direction, so it's not as obvious, it's just the same series of bushes over and over and over again. In my case, it's a little bit obvious, but that's because I'm doing it very quickly. You guys can take your time. Whoops. So now we've got a lot of this stuff going off into the distance. If you like that effect for leaves, maybe this was an oak forest, I could grab all those bushes And not only use them as ground bushes, let's get a whole bunch of them this time, but then I can move them up and use them as tree branches as well. So let's grab a whole bunch of these guys. This time when I duplicate them, I'm going to move them up to the top of the trees. So now I'm actually adding branches and tree cover. Again, those of you lucky enough to using a powerful computer, it's going to actually add shadows automatically where these things are depending on your light source. So I'm just going to add a whole bunch of these things in different directions and in little clusters and stuff like that. So you can see how very quickly this becomes a forest. I've got trees on different levels, branches on different levels, leaf cover, that type of thing. So the splatter brush is one way to get that type of clumpy brush effect. The coarse bristles brush is another way to get a natural loose type of leaf effect. So I'm going to use those same dark greens. This time, I'm going to loosely go like that. You can see how it gives me this lovely, loose, random leaf type of effect. Vary the way you hold your hand. Vary the size and the direction of these brushes. Just like with a ground clutter, I could use a darker green to imply leaves in shadow. I can use a brighter green to imply leaves getting sunlight. So you can see just a few of those brighter greens makes it pop. Just like before, I'm going to use my selection tool to get a whole bunch of these green little brushes, copy them, paste them as branches on trees. And we can change the angle, change the direction, change the size to really make them feel like they're not the same cluster. The more variety you give it, the more natural it's going to feel. Okay. Now let's go ahead and grab all of these greens. Again, if you accidentally get a tree trunk, we can remove items, remove the tree trunk. Now we'll go back and make sure we got all the pieces we want. Duplicate, duplicate, duplicate. And again, the more you use it, the more variety you give it in size, in direction, in shape, the more natural it's going to feel. Don't just use the same cluster once in a regular space, but really try to mix it up, change the angle, change the direction. Ideally, when you first make them, you could even use a lot of different colors of green. I'm just using 3, sort of a bright green for highlight, a dark green for shadow, and a medium for the other pieces. But the more variety you use, it's really going to have more of a natural feel. Here's my forest. Now it's taking a lot of depth. I've got a sun-dappled field. If you wanted a darker forest, don't use as much bright green. If you wanted a brighter forest, now we'll go in and add bright flowers, birds in the sky, that type of thing. Maybe I want to have an experience here for people, so let's get our base in view. I'm going to go for a gray stone, and I'm going to use that splatter brush and do sort of a pathway through my forest. I can actually have it continue for as long as I want. So now I've got this forest and a direction for people to go as they're experiencing my thing. Now I can hide little statues along the path. I could have the path lead to a little house or something like that. But as you can see, we've got tree branches in all directions. So making a forest, making a jungle in Tilt Brush. Now, another way to do branches, to do leaves, especially if you're at the point where you want to do all the leaves by hand. Maybe I want to do a specific palm frond or a specific arrangement of leaves. The cell vinyl is a nice tool to use for leaves because it's naturally a leaf shape. It also gives you a black outline. So I'm going to choose a more darker, a little more subtle green, but I'm going to take this branch right here. You can see how I can actually paint the leaves exactly where I want them. I can give them specific sizes, specific directions. So we've got the cell vinyl tool. Now maybe instead of just random bushes, let's get the camera lined up here. I'm going to make this a little bigger, a little smaller. I'm going to do a palm frond, and then we'll do the tune for the center stalk. So you can see I've got this palm frond here. Let's grab this guy, group this guy, because it's cell vinyl and tune, it's always going to have its outline. So now I can make a bush of some kind here. And now we'll add a couple of bright red flowers. In fact, I'm even going to use the petal tool. And now we're going to select this whole kit and caboodle and group it. Now we have a handmade plant that I can start duplicating and placing and even resizing, rotating a little bit so there's more variety. Let's put some over here. Oops. There. So now we have a whole bunch of different plants making up this jungle. And as we look around, there's all these different varieties that we've got growing in different places. And the more time you put into this, the more variety you give your jungle, the more natural it's going to feel. I can now use, let's see, we'll go dinosaur size. We'll grab a medium grayish green, sort of a sage green. I'm going to go for the coarse bristles. Right, I can find the coarse bristles, big as I can. And we're just going to give ground clutter. We're just going to do vertical strokes. I'm even going to cheat. Select those vertical strokes I just painted, but none of the bushes or anything. So now I can quickly and easily just get a whole bunch of that. Spread it around. Make sure it's just poking up through the ground. We do a lot of this in the textures and area of effects lessons, where we're looking at how to do fur or forest or these really quick areas, mostly using our copy and paste, our selection tool. There we go. Deep, dense jungle now. That didn't take us too long. It didn't use too many different tools. And there's a lot of variety we can do. Now I can go in for special cases. Let's grab a bright, vibrant blue with our cell vinyl and do some flowers here and there. The color's bright enough that it's going to stand out, even from a long range. We have these single little flowers peeking out amongst the jungle. That's It's right in the camera. Let's move the camera through the branches. Hey, fun effects with a camera, moving through the jungle to visit Bonsai in his jungle domain. The more time you spend, the more detail you go, the richer it's going to be. One final trick, and this is really where the PC users have a big advantage. If I shrink it down and move it back, you can see that's the entire size of my entire rainforest here. While it's really cool, it's not particularly huge. I'm even going to kill the fog so that you can see this a little better. There we go. When I'm giant size, if you're on a PC, this will bog down even a big PC. But if I want this to be a big jungle, if I select everything, my whole computer actually froze for a moment. Now I'm going to duplicate everything. And it stutters, but now I've got a copy of the entire rainforest. I'm now going to go around and put extras. There, we'll put one over here. Let's bring my jungle around. Duplicate that one. And swing it over here. You can see I'm just multiplying this one jungle basically by like 5. Okay, come over here. One more. Duplicate, please. And it even pauses my whole computer while I get another batch of the entire jungle. Let's see, where's my starting point? Starting point's over there. Okay, a couple more. Duplicate. Frozen, but now we're get live again. One more to fill in the gap over here. Where are you guys? You guys are over here. There's the gap. One more to fill in the gap. So when I go back to normal size, every direction I look, I've got like half a kilometer of forest in all directions. This is where the slower, smaller devices like the Quest, like the PlayStation might start to have problem, depending on how much detail, how much of this jungle life you're really putting forward. So I'm going to get my leaves in the foreground, my lovely flowers in the background. So today's teaching tilt brush, bringing a jungle to life. Different tools and tricks depending on the type of forest you want to build. A conifer forest up north will use more spiky, coarse bristles for pine trees. A jungle, I might start draping vines using the icing, that type of thing. But have fun with it. Give it personality. Think about where on the planet your jungle might be and what sort of effects you might give it. I hope this gives you some inspiration and things to try. We have a lot of fun doing these, so let us know if you got any questions or if there's anything you'd like us to do. Tell us in the comments down below. I'm going to see if I can get my message here visible through the jungle. Thanks for joining us. We do this all the time. It's also archived on youtube.com/shamelessmayhem. This has been Teaching Tilt Brush. Thanks for joining, everybody. Have fun.